These kinds of crimes are crimes of compulsion. You get into a habit, you get into a routine, and what I've seen, over the years in criminal law, when people dip their toe in the water of depravity, what happens is that's no longer a turn on. I gotta ratchet it up a little bit more.
And you should know, to the extent the clients feel comfortable, we also intend to make these individuals available to the authorities, specifically to the FBI. And you should also know a few of them have already been spoken to by the FBI.
So just because he's charged with what he's charged with now doesn't mean that can't change. There's a thing called a superseding indictment. I have no doubt that you're going to see a superseding indictment coming down the pike. Wrestle over Frosted Flakes with a 10-year-old and baby oil.
Puff just said we used to wrestle over the Frosted Flakes, and we're streaming live. That was stupid.
That was stupid. So here's the thing. If he's got evidence, like video evidence, of sexual abuse of a minor, if he has that in his possession, he's in possession of child pornography, and there is no exception. It's a long list already, but because of the nature of this case, we are going to make sure, damn sure, that we are right before we do that. I would suggest you do that. Here's the issue with somebody like Combs. No question he's the diddler, right? There's no question he's the diddler. There's no question he's a freak. Who the f*** has 1,000 bottles of baby oil? 1,000 bottles. And to just give you a clue as to how ridiculous that is.
What's the problem?
Please don't make me do that.
This is the opportunity that you've been waiting for. You hold all the power in your ass. Yes, that's what we do.
That's why you need baby oil, evidently. What is the next phase for Diddy? Well, he's going to appeal his detention order, but that's not going to go anywhere. This is too big a case. There's too much shit going on, and he is just too out there to have a judge let him go free. Daddy, I like it when you're scrambling and scraping for shit, Daddy. Oh, that's just so f***ing creepy.
That was you.
Hey, man.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer. I am here today with our content genius. The person you know is Michael Rivers, who's behind the camera, in front of the camera, behind every idea, in front of the microphone. Say hello, Michael.
Hello.
And where do you get merch?
Actually, you go to clrbrucerivers.com, and I would like to say thank you for all the recent success, and these hats have been flying off the shelves, and get yourself one. Get yourself one. Spread the message. Because
what's the message?
Stop self-snitching. There's too many people posting their crimes online these days.
All right, so there's an update on the Puffy case. Puffy, P. Diddy, P. Diddler, the diddler who's in the Brooklyn jail, Metro, who's basically his best friend right now is either a cockroach or a rat. You know those cockroaches? Before we get to that, this is brought to you by our loyal sponsor, eForms.com. eForms.com. Let's say you're a multimedia mogul and you're worth $1 billion and you need, but now you know your money's flying off the shelf because you've been sued by 3,000 people. What are you going to do? Well, you got to start watching your pennies. You're going to go to eForms.com and get a power of attorney so your lawyer can act on your behalf outside so he can slip you some food that isn't already half eaten by cockroaches in your cell. So you go to eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid the high cost of a lawyer and protect yourself in and out of court, whether you need a power of attorney, whether you need a bill of sale. If you sell your motorcycle. Actually, I don't recommend that. Motorcycles are amazing. Don't sell your motorcycle. But if you sell your car because you're getting a new hot set of wheels, or what do they call that? Or your whip. You get a hot whip.
Yeah.
If you sell your whip, you need a bill of sale. Whatever you need, go to eForms.com. Okay, now let's get into the Diddy. First of all, before we get into what's going on, what is the next phase for Diddy? Well, he's going to appeal his detention order, but that's not going to go anywhere. This is too big a case. There's too much shit going on, and he is just too out there to have a judge let him go free. There's just no presumption that can be rebutted about a condition or set of conditions that would reassure his appearance or protect the public. Those are the two issues. So that is not going to go well for him, period. End of story. I've seen it 100 times. But in this case especially. And where is he? He's in the I think I said something about Rikers Island in our last video. It's not Rikers Island. It's the Metro Jail in Brooklyn. Now, remember Jeffrey Epstein? He was in the Metro Jail in Manhattan. So different jails, but same set of squalor. I mean, they're not nice places, and whether they have rats or that I can't really speak to. But the news of the day, well, before we get to the news of the day, the next step is for him to appeal his detention order, which will go nowhere. And then he'll have to challenge the search warrants. I guarantee you his lawyers are going to have a hearing after hearing after hearing challenging the search warrants. Now, this isn't going to go like Donald Trump's hearing. I don't know how Donald Trump has been able to do this. His lawyers, he's got pretty good lawyers. They don't get what they want from the district court. They go right to the Supremes. You're not going to get that here. You're not going to get an appeal to the Court of Appeals from a district court ruling on a pre-trial motion. You're not going to get any of that. That only comes after you go to trial, after you lose, and that becomes an issue for appeal.
But okay. I was thinking I had to go to circuit, district circuit, and then Supremes.
Right.
But yeah.
But not till after your trial, so you don't get interlocutory appeals.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So what they call that is an interlocutory appeal. So, and you generally don't get that right as a defendant. There's certain circumstances in which you don't go by Donald Trump because Donald Trump is an anomaly. He was a former president, so he's getting special treatment. So they'll have motion hearings, and then, after that, then they set it up for, trial management conference kind of thing, and then trial. And it'll be a while. Now, here's the thing. So, according to NBC News, at a news conference held Tuesday by Texas-based attorney Tony Busby, said he's representing 120 accusers with allegations against the entertainment mogul that occurred over 20 years. And we're going to watch his news conference here in a second. But if you look at, here's the issue with somebody like Combs. No question he's the diddler, right? There's no question he's the diddler. There's no question he's a freak. Who the fuck has 1,000 bottles of baby oil? 1,000 bottles. And to just give you a clue as to how ridiculous that is.
What's the problem?
Please don't make me do that.
This is the opportunity that you've been waiting for. You are now in the power position. You hold all the power in your ass. That's what we do. It's only a little bit in your ass. Nobody's gonna die. You know what you signed up for.
That's why you need 1,000 bottles of baby oil, because that's the power of the ass, right? Well, here's the issue that I have, honestly, with all of these. When you have somebody like Diddy, and all of a sudden something like this happened, guess who wants to come and say that I was there, I was here, I was there, my face was down and my ass was in the air, and yeah, you can't believe everybody that comes through the door. They have to have something to back up what they're saying. Remember when Prince died? How many people came out and said they were his love child? It's kind of the same thing. So, according to Mr. Busby, we will expose the enablers who enabled the conduct behind the closed doors. We will pursue the matter no matter what the evidence. Sounds kind of like he's a preacher, doesn't he? No matter what the evidence, Busby said during a news conference. Many powerful people, many dirty secrets, the lawyer said of the allegations. He added that his team has collected pictures, videos, and texts. Busby added that the allegations will include violent sexual assault, facilitated sex with controlled substances, dissemination of video recordings, sexual abuse of minors. I'm going to get to that last part in a second. It's a long list already, but because of the nature of this case, we are going to make sure, damn sure, that we are right before we do that. I would suggest you do that. Busby continued. These names will shock you. So here's the thing. If he's got evidence, like video evidence of sexual abuse of a minor, if he has that in his possession, he's in possession of child pornography. And there is no exception. You know, when a lawyer gets a child pornography case, which my colleagues get them all the time, they don't have any of that stuff in their possession. You want to see what the evidence is? You have to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and you have to view it there. Who wants to? Nobody does. So we're going to watch this here in a second, but the lawyer said he's had more than 3,000 individuals come forward to his office with accusations against Combs, and that he plans to begin filing lawsuits in various states within the next 30 days. Here's the problem with that. Everybody's coming out of the fucking woodwork. You know, oh, yeah. Oh, did you hear Diddy? Oh, yeah. I was at a Diddy party because there's no Diddy party, no party like a Diddy party, right?
Which I did create a little graphic here that you'll see on the screen. Let me know if you guys want to see that on any sort of merch or stickers or anything. But
you know, when you hear all this, and sometimes you retrofit things into things. So let's look back to when Justin Bieber was just a little kid.
Where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream.
Maybe not.
He signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first.
I thought that was weird when Michael Jackson did that. Don't we think it's weird when the Diddler does that?
I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So
who would be comfortable with that? Especially knowing what we know now. Nobody would be.
And we gonna go buck full crazy.
I'm going crazy.
We're gonna go buck full crazy
with a 15-year-old.
Okay, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And let's just watch one more. Michael thinks this is a good idea.
Don't get trouble, but it's just like, yo, we want to thank you for hosting the thing, man. It's been a pleasure. You didn't have to do it, and you did it.
No, I definitely didn't have to do it. I definitely didn't have to.
Didn't have to do what? I mean, this is Kevin Hart, and this puts things into context.
First and foremost, I'm not getting in the bed.
Look how uncomfortable Kevin Hart is.
If we can, just let's just put the camera a little this way, just so we're not. I don't want my
he doesn't even want the bed in the shot.
shot to even like I don't want it to come close to the bed at all. Usher look like he fresh off a goddamn plane. I should.
Fresh off the garden stage. That's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, pause, but like just back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented.
Back in the day when he was like 10, and then he catches himself and he goes, wait, pause. Like he Freudian slip. Like
I know. I mean, it's like, what the hell?
He had legal guardianship over him.
Place because he used to always get up early with me. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world. And
What the fuck did Puff just say?
Wrestle over Frosted Flakes with a 10-year-old and baby oil.
Puff just said we used to wrestle over the Frosted Flakes, and we're streaming live. That was stupid.
That was stupid. I mean, I honestly can't believe that you got a guy who's a billionaire. But that just goes to show you, when you're powerful and rich, you just want to do what you want to do. All right, now let's take a look at this press conference. It's about 3 minutes long.
The biggest secret in the entertainment industry that really wasn't a secret at all has finally been revealed to the world.
This Busby dude, he has some chops, I guess. He's handled, the oil spill in the Gulf. He's handled
Travis Scott Astroworld.
He's got a few very high profile cases. But let's listen to what he has to say.
The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward. Our team has had at this point More than 3,285 individuals contact us.
Okay. Here's the problem with that. You got to sift through all the bullshit. Because I guarantee you, some of these people are full of shit that they don't have any way to back up what they're saying.
With people claiming to have been victimized by Sean Combs. After vetting, we now represent 120 individuals.
What does that say if you got 3,200 and you've been able to only confirm 120?
Who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other individuals and entities that we will name as defendants as we file these individual cases.
So one of the things that you have is you've got a situation where Combs is the bad actor, right? He's directing everything. But then you have maybe a record label that, was in the know and could have stopped something, maybe, or was funding some of this, maybe. Or you've got all the employees that, that he had facilitating these freak-offs and whatever they were doing. And anybody in that chain. But here's the thing. The diddler is the only guy with the money.
And you should know, to the extent the clients feel comfortable, we also intend to make these individuals available to the authorities, specifically to the FBI. And you should also know a few of them have already been spoken to by the FBI.
So here's the other thing. So just because he's charged with what he's charged with now doesn't mean that can't change. There's a thing called a superseding indictment. So, but you can rest assured that if the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office are able to confirm more victims in Puffy's wake, that they'll add that to the indictment. And I have no doubt that you're going to see a superseding indictment coming down the pike.
Now, before we discuss the nature of the claims and claimants themselves, let me comment on the large volume of calls we have received since our first announcement. Even before the indictment of Sean Combs, we had received a small volume of calls and had screened a handful of cases. After the indictment of Sean Combs and the announcement that we were pursuing these claims, the floodgates opened. People who wouldn't otherwise, for a variety of reasons, are now stepping forward to make their voices heard.
Here's one of the problems that they're going to have. He's facing a federal indictment, right? And a very serious one at that. He's going to probably have his lawyers file a motion to stay the civil proceedings pending the criminal case. I guarantee you that's going to happen.
And to pursue justice. But no, most of these people are scared. They fear backlash in their communities. They fear backlash in their own families. They are afraid of retaliation from the perpetrators and their associates. They are rightly afraid for their own personal safety. I expect that through this process, many powerful people will be exposed. Many dirty secrets will be revealed. We know what we are potentially up against. And as is always the case in situations like this, when a celebrity is involved, people can be downright mean and nasty. You would be shocked at the length fans will go, no matter the evidence, to the contrary, to defend celebrities they love. I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics.
We see that with Andrew Tate and the Tate brothers. We see that with Donald Trump supporters. We see that with anybody who has a celebrity status. There's a sect of people who are just so loyal. Oh, this must be a conspiracy against them. It must be the Matrix. It must be the deep state. It must be blah, blah, blah.
I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics. I've personally already been threatened multiple times on social media. And when I agreed to pursue this, I expected as much. This isn't my first rodeo. But victims who step forward to have their voices heard should not be subjected to that kind of conduct. They should not be targeted.
Well, then why don't you do it a little quieter? I mean, you're out there, right? I mean, you got your 800 number plastered.
I want to say this, and I want to be clear about it. Although we are vetting each call as stringently as we can, I always start with a mindset that I believe victims. I believe victims because I understand the tremendous courage it takes to step forward. So if you're watching this, please hear me.
This is an ad. This really is an ad.
If you're out there and you have been victimized, you are not alone.
So one of the things, a lot of states have these, passed these laws that despite the fact that the statute of limitations has passed, that within a certain period of time, upon discovering X, Y, or Z, and each state has different requirements for this, but you can still file a lawsuit even though it might be 20 years ago. So the difficulty I have with this is just that everybody's going to come out of the woodwork. Do you really think he's got over 3,000 victims? I mean, maybe he was that prolific. I mean, he's got 1,000 bottles of, that's half a bottle for each person, right? Or no, a quarter bottle, a third of a bottle for, but it doesn't matter. You've got 3,200 people claiming to be victims. I'm sure there's some of them are real, some of them aren't. I just can't imagine you'd have 3,000 victims. Although if you're into this stuff, these kinds of crimes are crimes of compulsion. And you get into a habit, you get into a routine, and you do shit over and over and over again. And then, and what I've seen, over the years in criminal law, when people dip their toe in the water of depravity, what happens is that's no longer a turn on. I gotta ratchet it up a little bit more. Remember when Andrew Tate said as much? He said, I no longer want to have sex. I gotta dominate. I have to do this. I have to do that. And so your depravity gets more and more and more, and you have to do more and more and more to get off.
I'm gonna send something to you, and I want you to play this. And there's some very pertinent parts about this.
Know that she can count on me, but at the end of the day, I'm never gonna force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters and
Poor kid.
yeah. So yeah, I just
You believe him? I believe him.
I just want to protect her. I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody.
Through anything that I went through.
Yeah, if she ever needs me,
Can't even look at the camera.
I'm just a call away.
Okay.
So that's a little snippet of what Justin Bieber went through. The problem that I have with it is pretty vague, right? I mean, certainly wouldn't be admissible in court. But if you put two and two together, that he was with Diddy and whatever, was he sexually abused by Diddy? I think that's what the implication of this podcast is. He certainly is a broken individual. And you have Diddy, and then there's that other video.
Yeah. I was gonna say when you link all of those three together, so you have that initial encounter, right? The custody one.
Yeah, play the other one.
The one after where the phone call one.
So let's just take a look at one more. We're looking at three of these, and everybody's kind of doing this, but it just does to put it in context. Now look at how skittish he is with Diddy here in this next video.
Everything's good? Selling out arenas and everything? Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my...
See, that's starting to act different, huh? I mean, if you look at Diddy there, and he's like miffed that he's not getting what he is owed.
As, partners and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But you never really got my number, so...
Right, okay.
My number?
Yeah.
You could make whatever you wanted to out of this video, but if you look at the body language, how uncomfortable he is, and he's fidgeting. Could he just be a nervous teen, or could it really be you know, there's something bad happened in his past, and you know, he really didn't want it, and he's being confronted by Diddy, and he's afraid of him. I don't know if that's the case or not. I wouldn't put it past him if that was the case. So when you have somebody that's as prolific, and there's no question that Diddy had parties and he was prolific, and he had, I mean, fuck, he had 1,000 bottles of baby oil. How do you need 1,000 bottles? Because you went to Costco and you got a fucking deal on bulk baby oil? I mean, does that make any sense? It doesn't make sense at all. What does make sense is that he's doing this shit every day. And he's got his routine of whatever it is that he's doing.
Miami, a night of party, and I don't really remember what I was saying. You know what I'm saying?
Would you like a reminder?
Yeah, sure.
Play some.
Hey, yo, listen, yo, I love it all. I love it all, man.
He loves it all.
Apparently.
Apparently.
I like when you like this, Daddy.
Yeah, where you put my bag?
Daddy, I like when you
it's right
scrambling
here,
and scraping for shit.
No. That was you.
Scrambling.
What? Scrambling and scraping for shit? In other words, I like to see you on your all fours. I like to see you in a position of submissive, me in control. What?
Daddy. He kept saying daddy.
Daddy.
He's talking to another person. He said, daddy. I like when you're scrambling and scraping for shit, daddy.
Ugh.
Yep, you're
Scrambling and scraping for shit, daddy. Daddy.
You said, I like when you do it like that, Daddy. When you scrambling and scraping for shit.
Now, he's probably shitting his pants here because he's called out. Because he doesn't want anybody to know that he is into whatever he's into.
But what did he say right before that? I love it. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Now, look how quiet he got all of a sudden. He just got super fucking quiet. Daddy, I like it when you're scrambling and scraping for shit, Daddy. Oh, that's just so fucking creepy. See how quiet he got all of a sudden? He just got called out. That's what happens when you get called out. So
But he loves it all.
And here's the thing. He liked his recordings. You know, just like a serial killer likes a trophy from their kill, these guys who do this shit like to have something to remember the experience because it was so fucking great. And jerking off to it, you can get just as much of a thrill when you're by yourself with your 1,000 bottles of baby oil. He's off to the races, you know, and you're going to watch. There's going to be a superseding indictment with more allegations. But you're not going to see that from the U.S. Attorney's Office until they can verify every last little bit of it. They need testimony. They need text messages. They need video footage if you've got it. They need a way to show that you're not just some hanger-on who's trying to score a quick payday, which is what he said Cassie was doing, Cassie Ventura. But we all know that he dragged her down the hallway and probably did all kinds of other shit to her. You know, the biggest problem I think he has is that people are going to come and testify that they were held against their will for days on end until their bruises cleared up, until their faces cleared up, until whatever. I mean, and to have somebody subjected to this shit over and over and over again to the point where they need to be rehydrated with intravenous fluids. And you know, if any of you guys comment that that's normal, don't come to my house. That's all I'm saying.
And isn't that coercive in general of like holding something over someone's career?
Yeah, well,
even
if you're holding your career over your head, that's coercion.
Yeah.
If you're physically prohibiting somebody from leaving, that's force. You know, force, fraud, or coercion. So we'll see you next time here in Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, along with our content genius, Michael Rivers. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon. And where do they get the merch?
Go to clrbrucerivers.com for the hat, hoodies, and sweat and shirts and prints. So
we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Shout out Tony and Nick. We'll see you next time.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That's
There's no question that they're federal agents. So if you assault a federal agent, you can expect to do a shit ton of fucking prison time. But you don't have that when you're acting alone. Isn't that kind of crazy when you think about it? He can get all that stuff together. He can get up to the gate. And as long as he doesn't do anything, what's the crime? He was delusional in his support for Ukraine. He's delusional in his thoughts. And here he is posting up between the 6th and 7th hole on Trump International Golf Course at a business nearby with his rifle poking through a fence. That's basically what I'm saying. So when you look at what he did, and if Trump was nowhere around, you can't conspire with yourself. So you got to go with a more serious crime. What's the most serious crime that he committed? And the most serious crime that he committed is assault with a deadly weapon against a federal agent. And because they can't get him on anything that he did to Trump because Trump was at the hole behind. So he wasn't there. But the real question is, how did he know how to post up where he posted up? How did he know where Trump was going to be at that particular moment? Because without that advance team, he probably could have taken a free shot at Trump. And
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. But who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your very own. Not many people can say that they have a very own personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer at their disposal, and you do, and you know who you are. So today we're reacting to Ryan Wesley Ruth with our content genius suggestion, Michael Rivers, who's behind the camera, behind the phone, behind everything. Without me, he's basically like I'm a puppet and he's the puppeteer, That's Michael. So say hello, Michael.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
All right, so today we're reacting to Ryan Wesley Ruth. He just got busted for, and it really was, we were calling it an attempted assassination of Donald Trump, but there were no shots fired from his gun. And we're going to talk about what crimes he may have committed. But before we get to that, guess what? This is brought to you by our very loyal sponsor, eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to do just about anything you need to do without a lawyer. So if you have a power of attorney that you need, if you need an agreement, like a bill of sale, if you have any kind of thing that you're selling, always get a bill of sale. Go to eForms.com. If you need a medical power of attorney, you want your wishes to be carried out, go to eForms.com. My grandmother, she's in the basement, and I know we've had at least one person talk about we shouldn't be bad-mouthing grandma's in the basement. And I don't keep her in the basement all the time. I do let her up from time to time, just usually when she's, dealing, not when she's dealing meth or anything like that. But, just generally speaking, we had to get power of attorney for grandma because grandma's got a lot of money from her OnlyFeeds fan page, and, we got to protect her. So eForms.com, very effective way to avoid the high cost of a lawyer, and it protects you if you ever wind up going to court. Because if it's writing, you can't argue with a document. You just can't. eForms.com, very effective way to take care of business. Okay. Who is Ryan Wesley Ruth? Ryan Wesley Ruth was a dude that, he's 58 years old, my age, and he is just a mixed up son of a bitch, right? He went to Ukraine and, tried to work with some organizations saying he was going to get all these recruits, Afghan recruits, and everything he said and did was basically fantastical. In other words, he was doing this to try to reinvent himself, I think, a little bit, but not doing this because he had any real skills in the areas that he was pretending to reinvent himself about. Does that make sense? So here's what we know. Trump was at Trump International in Palm Beach, which is not that far from the airport. And what happens is these, when Trump goes, there's an advanced team there that goes. He doesn't have the same protections as the sitting president, just because that's just the way it goes. But he does have protections of the Secret Service for two reasons. One, he's a former president, and two, he's a candidate for office. So he does enjoy those protections. So what they did is they go to the, they advance, they go to the first, to the hold before he gets there. So he was going between the 6th and 7th hole of the golf course. You can see the layout here. And when he goes there, when the Secret Service agent sees a rifle in the bush, and they engage. So they fire at him, and he takes off, and he leaves a backpack and whatever he left there, and he hops in his car, and he gets pulled over a few miles away. What crime did he commit? That is the rub there. So now let's say he did this with another person. If he did this with another person, it would be a conspiracy to assassinate a sitting president. Well, that's a crime. That's a major, major crime. Now, my understanding, and the facts are still coming in, but if he pointed his firearm at, they found a long gun there. If he pointed his firearm at the Secret Service, well, that's assault with a deadly weapon. Just brandishing a firearm at somebody, whether you use it or not, that's assault. What is assault? Assault is the imminent fear of bodily harm. That's really what assault is. So even if I just go like this to you, that's a misdemeanor assault. Even though I didn't hit you, if I do it with the intent to cause fear, then that is assault. And you do it with a gun, that is assault with a deadly weapon. That's basically what I'm saying. So when you look at what he did, and if Trump was nowhere around, you can't conspire with yourself. So you got to go with a more serious crime. What's the most serious crime that he committed? And the most serious crime that he committed is assault with a deadly weapon against a federal agent. And because they can't get him on anything that he did to Trump, because Trump was at the hole behind. So he wasn't there. But the real question is, how did he know how to post up where he posted up? How did he know where Trump was going to be at that particular moment? Because without that advance team, he probably could have taken a free shot at Trump. And where do you spend the most time? On the tee box and on the green. And but let's talk about this guy and the profile of this guy a little bit. So he voted for Trump in 2016. He had a construction company. He had run-ins with the cops. In 2002, he had a standoff where he barricaded himself with a weapon. So this is a guy that's a little unstable. I mean, I can tell you, I've only done that a couple times. No, I'm kidding. It's never happened. But I mean, people who barricade themselves with a weapon like that typically are not playing with a full deck. In other words, he had $65 in his bank account, but I don't know that he was necessarily suicidal. The guy who shot Trump in Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania, he was serious. He was on a rooftop. He was exposed. He had to know that they were going to take him out the minute he fired a shot, right? And what did he do? He was blown away. And so one could argue that he was desperate. I mean, he had 65. He was supposedly was a sole, self-employed with his own construction company. But anybody can have a construction company.
Yeah, they labeled it as unremarkable.
Right. And so this is a situation where you've got a guy who's delusional, and he may think that he may think that he was doing the public a service by taking Trump out. Let me tell you, nobody is doing anybody a service by assassinating a political leader in this country. All you're doing is dividing. Period. Trump should not. I want to tamp down any rhetoric that there is out there. I don't believe Trump should be eliminated. I think that we should let the political process play out. The political process that we've had in this country for a long, long, long time. That's where the fight needs to be. It's with words. It's with ideas. It's not with guns and ammo. It just isn't. And I think everybody agrees that we're all Americans. We're all on the same side. You know, we have different ideas on how to get to where we want to get to, but we really need to just all be unified in the sense that we want no political violence. And when you see these guys who do this Ryan Wesley Ruth, he was delusional in his support for Ukraine. He's delusional in his thoughts, and here he is posting up between the 6th and 7th hole on Trump International Golf Course at a business nearby
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. But who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm a board-certified criminal defense lawyer, and I react to rap music and drill music. And also, today we're giving an update on NBA YoungBoy and his situation, YFN Lucci, and I'm sure you guys are aware of him and his situation. And we're going to talk a little bit about the George Floyd murder trial now that everybody is rested, and they're going to give their closing arguments on Monday, and I'll kind of give a trial wrap-up and see where things are at with that. So for starters, let's talk about NBA YoungBoy. NBA YoungBoy was arrested. Obviously, everybody knows that he was arrested in California after a police chase and finding another gun on him and whatever. And he was arrested violating his conditions of bond. And the judge out there set a bond of $500,000 plus his home, and the government appealed. He is now in the he's now been extradited to Louisiana, where he sits in the St. Martin Parish Jail. And you can see by this picture over here, he doesn't look too happy about it, now does he? And he's going to sit there on a federal hold by the U.S. Marshal until his case is called. So one of the first things they'll do is they'll have what they call a motions hearing. If there are any kind of motions to be filed, and usually there are some motions to be filed, and then they'll set a pretrial conference to discuss all kinds of things related to the case, and then set the matter for trial. So that's kind of where he's sitting, and he's going to be in there for a while. It'll take many months before he even sets foot in a courtroom for trial. Now, YFN Lucci, he was on the hook for a murder case out of Atlanta, and he was let out on $500,000 bond, and he violated his conditions of release almost immediately. And he went to a strip joint, which incidentally happens to be the same strip joint where the shooting happened that he's being held on bond. Well, actually now being where the original crime occurred. One of the things his lawyer was quoted by TMZ is saying, "We're going to fight this. This conditional release violation is full of inaccuracies and outright falsehoods, blah, 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 blah." You really have to be careful when you do that. And the reason being is because you make a preliminary statement just to be a tough guy. The judge doesn't like it when you do that. And the government generally doesn't just go off half-cocked and violate somebody's conditions because they can't prove it. He was on a bracelet, and it's pretty easy to prove that he wasn't where he was supposed to be, especially if you have a GPS bracelet on your ankle and they know exactly where you are. So I think it's a little reckless for a criminal defense lawyer to do that. I always keep my powder dry. I'd rather say less and have the final say than say all kinds of stuff and have that shoved up my ass. So, that being said, guess what? YFN Lucci is going to be sitting for a lot longer, unless his lawyer somehow gets him out on bond, which may or may not happen, but it's very difficult at this point. Now, lastly, let's get to the George Floyd trial. George Floyd, his trial was right across the street here in Minneapolis. We've got National Guard everywhere. And as you know, we also had Dante Wright's killing just a few days ago. It happened on Sunday. Very sad case all the way around. And it's really created a climate here in Minneapolis of uncertainty, fear, and unrest. So let's talk about the Floyd trial first. Derek Chauvin is on trial for the murder of George Floyd. And the defense, first of all, the prosecution has rested their case. And the last 2 days have been the defense's turn to put on a case. The defense doesn't have to put on a case. It's the burden of the prosecution to prove the guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And you can't hold the defense anything against defense for not presenting witnesses because the burden is on the state. Anybody who brings a case, that's their burden. So in criminal law, the state is the one who brings the case. The government or the state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense doesn't have to prove anything. However, it is a defense job to poke holes in the state's case. And what did they do? They brought in a use of force expert who did not seem all that great. They brought in a forensic pathologist who sounded pretty good. However, on cross-examination, I think he was pretty well dispatched. And then the last part of it was whether or not Mr. Chauvin was going to testify. Well, we know he didn't testify. And one of the things they do is you have to do a waiver on the record of your right to testify, because you have the right to testify, but you also have the right not to testify. And if you choose not to testify, nobody can hold that against you. In fact, the judge, the prosecutor, nobody can hold that against you. The prosecutor can't get up and say, well, he must be guilty. He's not saying he's innocent. They can't do that. That would cause a mistrial, and a prosecution-caused mistrial results in a walk. They can't re-prosecute him after that. So the defense has rested. And then after the defense rested, the state gets the opportunity for rebuttal. And that means that anything that was brought up by the defense's case that wasn't mentioned in the state's case originally, the state can bring a witness in to testify about something very narrow and very specific to the state's case. Now, here's the deal. In this case, George Floyd's face was on the ground, right? And his and he was at the back of the police car. And we know where and he was handcuffed, and we know where Chauvin's knees were, on his neck and on his back. Well, one of the things that Chauvin's medical examiner expert, the forensic pathologist, testified to was that he had his head near the tailpipe of the vehicle, and the vehicle was running. And so he said that blood gases should have been measured, and they didn't measure them. And he didn't have any data on that to say, and that could have been contributed to the cause of death. Well, after he gets done testifying, the defense rested, right? And guess what? Then all of a sudden his expert goes on a plane and he's going bye-bye. Then the next day, very early in the morning, the defense gets an email from the prosecutors saying that, oh, by the way, we have the blood gases and we did measure for carbon monoxide. Wow, interesting. And they just happened to find it by Dr. Baker. Bullshit. It seems a little coincidental. It's called sandbagging. And so they filed a motion to have that evidence testified to by their expert. Well, the judge wouldn't allow it because it really was unfair. They've known about the carbon monoxide testimony since February, and so the judge said it just wasn't fair. And you're springing this on us now. You guys should have had it. You've subpoenaed all the records. You should have had it months ago. Not going to happen. And so now, so today's Thursday. All sides have rested. All the evidence is in the case. What happens next? So tomorrow is Friday. There's no court tomorrow. So what are they doing? Well, the parties are hashing out what the jury instructions are going to be. There's all kinds of jury instructions in a case like this. All kinds of them. Starting from the duty of a juror, all the way down to all the elements of the crime, to the burden of proof, to the proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And so they hash out what the instructions are going to be. So that's probably what they're going to be doing tomorrow. Here's the other thing. You never want to give a jury a case on a Friday. You get a quick result. It's not always the right result. You can have a mistrial. And these jurors are going to be kept in sequestration for their deliberation. And so the judge wanted to give them the weekend to get their belongings, get whatever, pack a bag, and then we'll see you on Monday. Now, when they come on Monday, they come packed with a bag. So on Monday, what will happen is the state will go first. They'll give their closing argument. The defense will give their closing argument, and then the state gets, what do they get? They get a rebuttal. I hate this rule. It was just implemented about 15 years ago. But the state gets a second bite at the apple. But their rebuttal argument is limited only to things that were mentioned by the prosecutor or by the defense. So you can't just rehash your entire closing argument. You have to. It's got to be very limited to what the defense was saying. And then the jury gets their instructions, and off they go into the deliberations. They get sworn. The deputy gets sworn. Or actually, they're already sworn. It's sworn at the beginning of the case. But they get, and then they probably order lunch. And, the closing arguments are interesting because if they go too long, you lose your audience. I rarely go longer than a half hour. Half hour is plenty of time usually. But this is a big case. And this is a case that lasted 3 weeks. So everybody's tired. And there's a lot of evidence. Between both sides, there were like over 400 witnesses that they named. Thousands and thousands of documents. There's a lot of science to go through. But if you wind up giving a 2-3 hour closing argument, which I bet the state does in this case, I bet they play that video over and over and over and over again in their closing argument, which they have the right to do. They will, but if you go too long and if you're too gratuitous with the video, you're going to lose the jury. So I suspect that this jury is going to take at least a day, if not 2 days, to render a verdict. Remember what I said at the beginning in my last reaction? I said there's a concept in law called res ipsa loquitur that you can't get around. And Derek Chauvin was on the back of George Floyd for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. You can't get around that fact. It's just, and there's no disputing that. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Now, lastly, you can't make this up. You couldn't write a worse script in Minneapolis. While this is going on, there's a young kid by the name of Dante Wright. And Dante Wright was pulled over for, I believe, expired tabs, which is just, a very, very tiny reason to pull somebody over. But if you're driving while black, expect to get fucking pulled over. Anyway, so they pulled him over, and Dante Wright had a warrant. And he had a warrant for a failure to appear on 2 misdemeanor charges. One of them was possession of a pistol without a permit, which I think is an unconstitutional. I think that's an unconstitutional statute anyway, but that's another story. Anyway, so that event for that warrant happened in June. He was not charged until March. So when he got pulled over, he had no idea that he had pending charges. Why didn't he know? Because when they sent him the Zoom notice and that you have court and probably the complaint as well, when they sent that to the wrong address, he never got it. So this poor kid is getting pulled over, and then he takes off, and he violates my most basic rule of all rules. You don't commit a felony to avoid a misdemeanor. And that's what the other 2 charges were. One was fleeing a police on foot, and the other one was possession of a firearm without a permit. So one of the cops, Ms. Potter, assisted in the arrest, and he tried to take off. And when he tried to take off, she drew her service revolver, thinking apparently that it was her taser. And she yelled, "Taser, taser, taser," and then she shoots him and kills him. He drives a little ways, and then he's dead, which is just so sad because he was just 20 years old. Very, very sad. Well, Miss Potter she turned in her resignation. She agreed to turn herself in because she was charged with manslaughter in the 2nd degree. Her bail was $100,000, she bailed out. Now, if you've been watching the news, you've seen that Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, has just been on fire. And if you take a look at her home, and it's just all barricaded off with cement barricades and fencing, and it's just really a tough situation for the city, really. And but I think they have a good mayor. I like the mayor. He seems to have a voice of reason. So she bonded out, and now she's facing manslaughter in the second degree. Manslaughter in the second degree is a charge that carries a guideline sentence of 48 months. I think that was the right charge because I don't think they can prove intentional murder. In fact, I don't think it would even withstand probable cause. I don't know that they could do felony murder because you have to intend, for something else to happen. And her intention was to arrest him with a taser, or at least that's what her defense is going to be. But keep in mind that mistake is a defense. Manslaughter in the second degree calls for a concept called culpable negligence. That's where you appreciate the risk of harm, basically, and you disregard it. I think she has a shot at beating this case. And I know that people are going to say, oh, I'm a Fed, and, oh, you don't like black people and whatever. It's not, no, I'm just calling balls and strikes. I think Chauvin's going to get convicted, and I think that Ms. Potter has a chance of beating her case. But we'll see how that goes, and I'll give you more updates as we go along. So stay tuned for further updates. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Patreon. Remember, all those dollars go right to some indigent, poor son of a gun who's sitting in jail because he just can't afford to get out. And we'll see what happens Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday when we get the verdict on the Chauvin trial. Thanks. See you soon.